Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast. And in the studio, I have someone that is a treasure to the D and knows the D on so many other levels. You probably know her for her son. Well, really, both her sons actually have made an imprint on Detroit, John and Jerome. But if you really get a chance to know her from so many different things, I'm talking about everyone I know in community. And I know a bunch of people in community all go. If they've been in it for a minute, say, "Oh, you mean Gladys? You mean Gladys? You mean Gladys?" MaBus, how you doing today?
Hi. Gary, it's so great to be here with you.
Definitely.
You make me smile.
I love it. I love it. So we start these whole things off with your Detroit story. How many generations deep are you to Detroit? Are you first, second, third?
I'm actually the first. My father was born in Kentucky and my mother was born in Mississippi.
Okay.
So I'm number one, I guess.
So that will make you one, but
Yeah.
also Kentucky and Mississippi, those aren't usual routes to Detroit.
I know. So they met somewhere up here in Detroit.
Okay.
Somehow, they met up here and got married, and it was 12 of us.
Okay.
I was 8 boys and 4 girls, and we all born right here in Detroit. We started off at Herman Kiefer, and we ended up at Women's, I think.
Okay.
The last ones, yeah.
So now you going, you already giving us some games, so we need to know with all them brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I'm Detroit
before
boy.
we go there, Mississippi. Whereabouts in Mississippi?
Yazoo.
Where is Yazoo, Mississippi?
Yazoo City, Yazoo County. One of these listeners will correct me.
They're gonna be typing in the comments like,
but it's in Yazoo. She left there, I guess, as a young lady, as a young girl. I assume. I think what happened, my grandmother, as in a lot of the older families, my grandmother came up here and found a work, got a job, and then sent for her some of her kids.
So in reverse style, because we're so used to hearing like the dad come up and sent for the fam. The mom came up.
Was the mom.
Okay. So I definitely am interested now in some of that grandma story too, of what you know. But before we go there, Kentucky. Whereabouts in Kentucky?
Paducah.
Where is Paducah?
Paducah, Kentucky. It's down there, down in Kentucky, and I went there one time to where Dad was from, and we left a little in a little hurry because we heard that Dad had kind of got into some trouble somewhere down there, and he left in a hurry, and we took off because we didn't want that name to bring up bad memories. So we took off. So we didn't stay long, but we were just there for a day or so.
Okay.
And when I say we, I speak of my older brother, Butch. His name was Butch. His name was Abram. He was a bus driver for the city here in Detroit before he retired, and later drove for the charter buses and what have you before he passed away. But he was well known around the city driving that bus. That was my name. My maiden name is Bogart. A lot of people may know that name from those infamous brothers of mine. But everyone knew Butch. His name was Butch Bogart, so he was a bus driver. And
so I'm sure now I'm jumping some of the story. People, I know he took the uncle took a whole lot of pride in saying, you know who that's named after.
That's
you know he got all that from me.
You know it, and Butch played football for Wilbur Wright, and my older brother. And see, I'm getting ahead because my one of my younger brothers that was up under me. My mom had 4 girls, and between each girl was a boy or 2. So, the boy next to me I used to call him my hip. That was Leroy, and Leroy was a coach at Kettering High School. He was a coach. He ended up being the principal at Kettering, and he's the reason Jerome is where he is. He's the reason that Jerome is playing football, because I was working Jerome for an academic scholarship because he's extremely bright, extremely smart. So that's what my husband and I were doing. We were trying to get that scholarship for him. And just as you and I are sitting here talking, my brother came over, as he used to do all the time, and we were actually just kind of sitting around talking. So when it was time for him to leave, he walked up. I walked him to the door, and Jerome, John, and their friends were all playing out in front of the house.
Mhm.
And Jerome was they were playing football, and Jerome would catch the ball, and he would run, and he was bigger than all the other guys, John included, and his friends. And
Even
he
though
was
he was
faster.
younger.
He was younger than everyone,
Mhm.
but he was bigger and faster. And my brother stood there and watched him.
Hmm.
And he told me, he said, that boy there could get a scholarship to play
Hmm.
ball. I'm like, come on. He said, yeah, you need to take him. I had him in, they were in Lutheran school. And
Mhm.
he said, you need to take him out of Lutheran school, put him into public school, and he can get a scholarship to go to college.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't know if I want to put him in public school. They've been in Lutheran, and I was gonna send him to Lutheran High West. Actually, is where he was going continue the Lutheran education. But he told me, he said, you need to think about it, and you need to
Mm.
talk to my husband
So
about it.
I definitely want to put a pin in that. We're gonna pick up with that.
That's how
I
it
still
started,
wanna.
and it was that brother. So we
Okay.
go back to my brother Leroy. That's
So
to the
shout out to
beginning.
the
So
hip,
that's yeah,
Leroy.
Leroy.
Amongst that, where did you all live when you all first got here? Your family, mom and dad. Where
They
did you
were,
all
you
start?
know what? They were on the east side,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember them talking about Canfield, but my remembrance when I was 4 or
Mm-hmm.
so, I remember being 4, and I remember living on Lumpkin
Mm.
off of 6 Mile,
Mm. Okay.
right over there, and I know the street, and I don't know if it's right off of 6 or
Like the cross
the
street. So
cross
now.
street, but I can take you to it. And it was a soap factory at the end of our block. And then I remember it was tracks. I think it was railroad tracks. But I remember starting school over there, and I started at Washington.
Hmm.
And I think now it's Washington Trade, but it was Washington Elementary
Hmm.
back then. And I remember starting school over there. And I remember my brother started school, Butch. This is my older brother, and Butch was he was a little short guy. He ended up being about 5'3", but when he started kindergarten, they were saying he was so small. They was thinking about not even taking him in school because he was so short. But he was stocky and really a great guy, but he was just short. But they took him on. He was good. But I remember being on Lumpkin, and I remember my great uncle dying, and we lived in the house in the back because they had back then they had little houses
Mm-hmm.
behind the house, and he was a preacher,
Mm.
and I remember when he died, they brought his body to the house. That's when they used to sit the coffins right in your living room, and everybody would come to the house, and I remember that, and I remember going to his funeral. I remember being in the car, leaving the house, and I think I was about 4,
Hmm.
4 or 5, 4, and that's my earliest remembrance. And we were on Lumpkin. We were still on the east side.
Okay, so like I'm guessing that would be not far from, even though like I always joke and say like everybody on the east side is near the airport, but you know, like every person says that. But what would the airport area ish sort of area?
Um,
Not so much.
not so much as the airport. At least I don't remember the airport at all. I remember, but when I look at it now, I see that big water tower
Mm.
that's over there on the
Okay.
east. You know the big water tower
So
I'm
like
talking
not
about?
far from yeah. So like even like a little closer to Highland Park and
In a sense, going
mhm,
towards Highland Park. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. Because I remember St. Alban. Uh, um, what's the street now? The street after is it John R? I can see the street because the church is on it. Ebenezer,
Yeah, that's definitely right around John R.
right?
Yeah. So
That's
near
whatever street
so
they're
near
on. That's where we were. Right about a block or 2 blocks from there.
and near like yeah, it's a lot of like industrial and
Little
everything over there.
industrial places over there.
Yep.
That's where I remember being at. That's where I remember playing outside with my brothers, and we actually moved across the street
Mm.
from where we started, and we lived downstairs, and my mother's sister lived upstairs. We were like everywhere we would move, she would just about move behind us because her and I guess my mom were really close,
Really close.
and she only had one child, so they would always follow us when we find ourselves moving. And my mom and dad started having kids, so we end up moving so many different places because we'd have a child or two, and
Now you need
now we
more
don't
room.
we need more room.
So what did your mom do? What did your dad do?
My mom didn't work at all.
Mm.
My mom never ever. I don't ever
Mhm.
remember my mom leaving the house and not being there every single day when we came home from school, watching the stories, drinking some coffee or something like that. Never worked. My dad worked at a company on the east side called Selasnic Fisheries.
Hmm.
He was a truck driver.
Hmm.
And that's why I tell people that's why we had so many kids because dad was gone all the time. And, when dad come home and then here we go
Hey,
again,
there we go.
here we go. So
Making up for lost time all the
making
way.
up, making up. So but
Okay.
he worked at Selasnic Fisheries for years. And then after he was there, I think about 13 years, his eyes started going. And back then, I don't think they realized after you get a certain age, your eyes started going. The
Mm.
eyes started going bad. You need to get glasses. So that's all he needed to do was to go somewhere, get his eyes checked, and get glasses. But he didn't. He chose to get out of the truck driving and went
Warehouse.
into the company, and was like they called him an order man.
Hmm.
I guess he help with the orders coming in or
Hmm.
send trucks out or whatever. But he still worked for that company, but he worked inside instead of in that truck.
So he so in some of my past life, I was a truck driver at one point in time. So he did logistics. So
Yeah.
nothing's worse than a logistics person that used to be a truck driver. Because sometimes you can run game on some of the people like, nah, it's gonna be taking longer. So
Yeah.
if your dad did it, he was like, nah, nah, nah. I know that route could just do this or do that or
Yeah.
do this. And working logistics, basically, as we know, one of the largest industries that does exist. So that is unique and dynamic. That's where that everything picks up. And then your mom, I guess, taking care of all of you all.
All these kids, she couldn't afford to work. She couldn't,
Mhm.
she was having kids so often, and someone had to take care of them. So she was always at home.
Are you? So I know you have an older brother in Butch. Where do you lie in the
I'm the
order?
second. I'm the oldest girl, second child.
Okay.
It's just Butch and then Gladys.
So basically, you almost have like a bunch of other kids, kind of.
Yes, I raised them. I ran. I was right there with, right there with them. Cooking, and I tell a story that when we didn't know what our next meal was going to be, it was fish.
Mm.
It was fresh fish.
For the fishery.
Dad worked at the fishery, and I remember sometimes he would come home with a load of fish, and we ate shrimp. We didn't realize what we were eating, and we were cooking. I knew how to clean the fish. I could scale it. I was just telling somebody the other day how I remember scaling the fish and gutting it. Didn't know I was filleting. Open that fish up, take that head off, split it, and take all the insides out.
So this is like unprocessed food. This is like from caught to over. It's not like
Yes.
nowadays a lot of truck drivers, like when I was driving delivering food, the fish was packaged and you wasn't. It still had no bones in it almost.
Oh no! Dad had fresh fish
Mm.
that was inside that truck. I don't know.
So you knew the whole gutting and all of that.
What? completely to cut the tail off. I'm seeing it.
Mm.
Cut that head off, and it got to be nothing to us. Just but right now I don't eat fresh fish.
Oh
I
man,
ate enough.
you had enough when you were
Hey,
younger.
it was so funny because my kids,
Mm-hmm.
my 3 children were raised on Miss Gordon's fish sticks or whatever, whoever made little frozen fish patties and stuff like that. That's what they ate. They never had. If they eat it now,
That's up to them
that's up
because
to
you
them. But
don't
I
want to
didn't.
see no more. So when
You
people
know.
bring you to Baltimore or something like, you got to go to this crab burger.
Oh, I like crab. I'll
Okay.
eat. Oh yeah, definitely crab and lobster. And we ate lobster at home. Didn't know what we were eating when we were kids. Shrimp, I could fry. Just clean the shrimp, vein them all, and fry them just like they do, somewhere else. I learned how to do that. I was the oldest girl, so I was always helping mom cook and that kind of stuff. So I learned that kind of stuff. But being um raised up with
With the dad that's in the fishery, you gonna always have some
hey,
fish around.
I can eat a little. I'll eat a little bit now. I eat a
Probably
little.
even to smell yourself, it knocks something back. Like, oh, I done
I eat
had
a
too
little
much of
bit
that.
of fresh
I done
fish
had too
now.
much of that.
Yep. Eat a little whiting. I don't even know what I'm eating in there. I just don't have a taste for it. Mm-mm.
So
Cooked enough.
okay, so from there, high school. Where did you go to high school?
I actually started at Northwestern.
Oh, shout out Mighty Mighty Coats. I'm a
Yep. I went there for 2 years. We were living on Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
We lived on Delaware a couple times up by Rosa Parks and then down by the Lodge.
Okay.
Before Lodge, when they was first putting Lodge in. Because I went to Fairbanks. We moved on this side of town.
So you were there when they were placing, because obviously being here, my mom was when they placed the Davidson. I hear so many stories about when they placed 96. I don't hear any stories about when they placed the Lodge.
Yeah.
And
the Lodge, but yeah, that was back in 57 maybe, 52, 57. Yeah, a little bit
guessing
before.
they had to move a lot of families to get out the Lodge.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, they did, like they did with 75. But 75, that's a whole different story. The way they did that. But we moved when we left Lumpkin, East Side. We moved with my aunt. My aunt had a house, and she rented it out to us, and that was on 17th. 17th and Buchanan.
Okay.
So we lived over there for some years.
Okay.
I went to school over there. We left Lumpkin and we moved. That's when we moved on
to the west.
Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And see, we were on Philadelphia a couple times. We were on Philadelphia and Rosa Parks, or 12th Street back then. And then we were on Philadelphia and Lodge. Again, we were on Delaware,
So
Philadelphia, Pingree,
in that whole northwestern neighborhood.
Whole northwestern. We went from where, and when we were on Delaware and 12th is when I went to Northwestern. But we moved to Pingree and Second.
So you went over to Northern?
So now it doesn't make sense. I'm close to Northern.
Okay.
So I transferred over to Northern.
So, okay, so from being a Colt to a Jayhawk.
Yep.
It's interesting. I just did an interview with somebody that did that.
Yeah.
So first let's talk a little bit about, I'm guessing you were at the old Northwestern.
The old Northwestern, yes.
So at the old Northwestern to Northern, being what Northern is. So you were like with all the Motown acts.
Yes.
Between Northwestern and Northern High School, if people don't know, I would say that those are the high schools where a lot of the Motown people that played or the
that played. Yep. They
they
lived
were
there.
at or they were at Northern. They were either or. So I'm guessing you probably was in class seeing some of these people walking the hall.
Yeah. Yep, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was as a Northwestern person, I gotta ask, which school you like more? See, that's a tough one because she go to the alumni. She go to the alumni events with Northern.
Northern, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I guess because it was later, I remember Northern more,
Mm-hmm.
but Northwestern was better. It was a bigger school.
Mm-hmm.
It was better. I enjoyed Northwestern, and I guess that was I came out of Hutchins Middle School. I went to Hutchins.
So you knew everybody at Northwestern almost. Like
Yes.
all your friends were
All my
there.
friends and everything, and I ran and played and did everything at Hutchins.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I got to Northern, it's like it's time you got to settle down because you have played yourself, and now you need to try to get out of school. So Northwestern may have been the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so from Northern, what year you graduate? What's happening in the city at the time?
I graduated in 65.
Okay. So 2 years before the rebellion.
Yes. I
Okay.
graduated in 65. And by then we had as a family, we had moved on Philadelphia.
Mm.
And this was I think were we on Philadelphia? Yeah, we were on Philadelphia twice. Most streets
You just
we were
multiple
on
times.
multiple times
Mhm.
from 12th Street to the Lodge.
Mm.
And I'm sorry, to 2nd and 3rd. We were off 2nd once, we were off 3rd. We were on Pingree, Philadelphia, Delaware twice.
Mm.
And the last time we ended up at Philadelphia between Woodrow Wilson and Byron,
Mm.
1 block off of Rosa Parks.
So I want to ask this because I hear about it as I hear stories even about. I think my family. You know how sometimes family exaggerates things.
Mm-hmm.
I had my grandfather had an upholstery shop off Woodrow Wilson, but I hear so much about all the shops up and down Woodrow Wilson back then. What do you remember about Woodrow Wilson then?
Woodrow Wilson. We didn't do. I don't remember a lot about Woodrow Wilson
At the time.
because we would go cross Woodrow Wilson
Mhm.
to go to 12th.
Okay.
So
And
we didn't do a lot.
so what was on 12th Street at the time?
Everything,
Everything. Break it
anything you
down.
want was on 12th Street. You know,
Okay.
our markets,
Mm-hmm.
barbershops,
Mm.
dance halls.
It was dance halls on 12th Street?
Anything you want was
Mm.
on 12th Street.
Okay.
We even went to Reverend Franklin's church. I joined their church. C.L. Franklin, Aretha Franklin's dad. I was in the choir with Aretha Franklin because they had moved their church into the old Goldstone. What was the name of it? It was a movie theater. And the movie theater moved out and they moved the church into there.
Into the movie theater.
Into the old
and
theater.
that was on 12th Street.
On 12th Street.
Okay.
Off of Delaware. Because I guess the reason I went because I could walk to it. It was only a block or two from me.
So, okay. And I didn't know, I guess, in the time because I just know about New Bethel from so much of the history, especially being connected to all the Black revolutionaries I know. So, like, when I think of the Republic of New Africa and everything that happened there with New Bethel and Reverend Jerome and everything that happened with the Message for the Grassroots, I didn't realize, and I guess I should know this, and I'm glad you uplifted this, that there was another church that started for New Bethel in another location. And that was right there on 12th, but still in the same community.
In the same community. Now they moved from somewhere else before they moved there. I couldn't tell you where
they were before.
Yeah, I was younger and I wasn't really into that. I didn't know anything about it, but I remember I joined there and I went to church there for a while before they moved.
And C.L. Franklin, like I often say, another one of those like classic Detroit figures that, you know, so many different opinions depending upon who you talk about.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I can definitely say one of the largest voices in Baptist ministry.
Yes.
Because his, not just his sermons, but he was one of the first to take his sermons and record them and
Yes,
get them
and get
across
them
the
out the
country.
world. Yep, you're
And
right.
hence it was so much money. They have it in the Dr. King movies, and they talk about it even in Aretha Franklin's movies, the relationship between Dr. King and C.L. Franklin.
Oh
But
yeah,
so much
yeah.
money from New Bethel was sent down to
Yes,
Montgomery.
yes. It really was. I didn't know about it then. Like you, I read about it and
Mm,
heard about it later years. But yeah, Aretha was a big activist on that. Her and her dad. You're
mm-hmm.
right. They sent a lot. They did a lot.
And what? But let's talk a little bit about just being in the choir with Lady Ree. I know some of them people in the family and everything. Shout out Miss Fanny and them, because I already know. Just and I've had the honor of meeting her twice. Definitely things that impressed upon my mind, and very straightforward when I met her. What was she like when you all were in the choir?
Well, she wasn't a loud person or nothing. We weren't best friends or anything. We were just there and singing together, and she always sang.
Mm,
She led everything, and she we had no idea what was going to happen with her, but she was a singer and she always sang. So we were just right there behind her singing. Not
uh-huh.
not that I have a voice or anything, but back then people joined the choir to be in the choir to dedicate themselves to something in the church and whatever. And that's what I did. I was a young girl and I wanted to be in the choir, and that's what I
Hmm.
did. And she just so happened to be in that choir.
Oh well, that's definitely something that
Isn't that
goes in
something?
your life story
Yes.
of something big, because it is shout out Carolyn too, her
Yeah.
sister,
A
because
sister.
Carolyn will definitely let you know, like, same way, just no nonsense, very particular about how things should be done, but
Yeah.
done the right way.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, and I consider her voice a treasure for.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Huge, huge. Um I got a chance to meet her shortly before she passed.
Mm,
Hadn't seen her in years and years, and she lived across from me. I lived on the Detroit Golf Club. I
mm,
lived on the golf club, and she actually lived on the other side of the golf club over
mm,
there. So,
yeah.
um, but a friend of mine, Stephanie Terman.
Mm-hmm,
Rita was married to Glenn Terman years ago,
mm-hmm,
and Glenn Terman's daughter lives in Pittsburgh,
mm,
and her and John are good golfing buddies.
okay.
So, and she knew that I was an Aretha Franklin nut because when you call my phone, Aretha Franklin, that's who you heard singing on my phone.
Mm.
Until they took it away, they wouldn't let us do that on our phones. But for years and years, that's all anybody who knew.
Call me
You know what you're gonna
King
get.
Cadillac.
Yeah, so she would Stephanie called me one day. We had got to be friends, and um she called me and she said, Mama Ree, I think she called her that. She said she's going to be appearing here in Pittsburgh, and I wanna know if you wanna come down. I can get us backstage and take some pictures with her and talk to her. And I'm like,
Mhm.
heck yeah. I can do that. The only problem was, and I'm moving ahead on my story.
Oh, no
Um,
problem.
the only problem with that, I had breast cancer,
Mm,
and I was uh, having chemo. No, I was done with chemo, and I was doing radiation,
mm,
and I had to go to my doctor to find out if I could leave to go to
mm,
Pittsburgh, and she told me we had to change my radiation dates
mm,
so that I could end my radiation and then take that trip. So
mm,
she did. She changed that radiation,
mm.
ended it a little sooner for me, a week or so, or a couple of days, whatever, in order for me to get to Pittsburgh to
Wow,
go to that concert. And
that's deep.
my doctor did that. She did.
Well, shout out. Who was your doctor?
In a minute, I'll tell you, because
Shit.
right now,
Okay, we'll get there.
Henry Ford, doctor, and she claims to be family because she went to Notre Dame,
Ah,
And yeah,
Jerome
when
went there.
Jerome was at
Yeah.
no, she went
They
there.
were there together.
Dr. Walker,
Dr. Walker.
Dr.
Okay.
Walker Henry Ford.
Well, shout
Yes,
out Dr.
she is
Walker. And
Dr.
then
Walker.
when you say turban, just so
And
people know that may watch. So, okay, I know him most for playing JD Walker in JD's Revenge, but he also he also was the Colonel on A
the
Different
Colonel, a
World,
different, yeah,
and
yeah.
also he was the mayor in The Wire, and many other
Many
acts
other
too.
things.
But those are
Well,
things that that in
yep,
my
yep,
mind that
yep.
may stand
So,
out to the Detroiters different audience. You know what I'm
yep.
saying?
So he makes his way into Pittsburgh pretty
Okay.
good, and I remember with them. I had a chance to go to Aretha's funeral with them when they came in. She had called me and told me that I could meet up with her and her dad, and I could go to the funeral with them. But at the same time, something was happening in Pittsburgh
Mm,
that Jerome was doing, and I had to be there.
mm.
So I told her I was sorry that
You
I
couldn't make
couldn't.
that.
Yeah, because nothing trumps
Yeah.
being with
With
any of my
yeah.
children, whatever whatever
So
they need me. So I had to go to Pittsburgh that day.
so let's talk a little bit about family for you. So you graduate 65,
Hmm.
and from there, where you go? What's happening in life?
I went to Cambridge. Um, uh, it was a school downtown.
Mm,
Um, my dad, my dad wanted me to go to college.
hmm
He wanted me to go Lewis Business School. He wanted me to go to.
Okay, so I'm very familiar,
Are you
and
familiar?
I'm a Lewis College of Business person.
No,
Yeah,
really. You're the
shout out
first
to the
person I
Ponders
know.
family and everything.
Hey,
Actually, it's a project that has brought back Lewis College of Business in the iteration. It's not the same, but for people that didn't know, Detroit does have a historically black college and
yeah,
university.
yeah.
And it was Lewis College
And it
of
was Lewis
Business.
College.
I was there, the Ponders family and everything. And then shout out so many people, Dr. Allen. And they
Wow.
actually, now that I know this, and I'm going to put this to somebody, they're looking to do like more of the alumni meetups and stuff like that too. So, yep, Lewis
Oh,
College
that
of
is so
Business.
cool. That's what Dad wanted me, and I said, Dad, don't waste your money. I don't want to go. I didn't want to go. I said, you know what? I just want to be a mom.
Mm,
I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children and just be a mom. So
mhm,
I didn't want to, but before you get to that point, I had to go to work. I had to go
mhm.
to finish school, and I didn't want to go to school. So I ended up at Cambridge Business School
Okay.
downtown for switchboard operator and
Okay.
receptionist. Because as you see, I love to talk and I can talk.
There we
So
go.
I decided, well, let me use this. So I went down and I took classes and I learned how to be a switchboard operator.
Mm,
And back then, it was the plug boards
mhm,
where if somebody called in and I had the headset on and I had to plug into their line.
mhm.
And that it was something to learn, but I learned it. And by the time I got to use it, they had stopped using the plug boards.
Mm,
And by then was using the switchboards, the machines
okay.
where you push and put in. So I started working in as a receptionist and as an operator,
Okay.
and uh, I enjoyed that. So
Mhm.
I did that, but then I ended up falling madly in love with the boy next door
Mm.
on our last stop in Philadelphia when I graduated high school, um, and that was John Bettis.
Did you already kind of know early that it's like something about him?
No, when we moved over there,
Hmm
around October or so of 64, maybe 63, 64, and they had been there for years
Mm.
because it's my husband, his
His
brother,
family is
and
just
two
there.
sisters, mother and father, and they had lived there, and we moved next door to them.
Okay.
But I knew his brother Jimmy and I were friends. We went to school together. We were in Northern together,
Okay.
and his two sisters were friends with my sisters and my younger
Mm-hmm.
family because they all went to school together.
Yeah.
They went to elementary, then they went to junior high together. But I didn't know my husband because he went to Cass,
Mm.
and I didn't. I was
You
at
never really
Northern.
saw him.
I didn't. Right. So only time I would see him was when he would leave home going to work.
Mm.
And I was working, and I just kind of watched him, and I'm like, he wasn't my type because he wore glasses
Mm.
and he was a nerd. He had the
Oh
shirt with
man.
the pins and things in the
Oh
top
man.
pocket,
He was
and
prepared.
and his pockets was bulging. But that's what got me. I'm like, those pockets. I wonder if he got money. He got
Mm.
money in those pockets. But I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Mm.
It was just faith, I guess. And we started dating. He actually asked me to. He came up to my job. I was working at Sears
Mm.
in Highland Park.
Oh, right over here.
At Sears,
Ain't that something?
I'm telling you, I've been around this
This.
supposedly big city and big.
Uh-huh.
No, I've been there,
Okay.
and I was working at Sears,
Mm-hmm.
and he came up to my job and asked me out. Now,
And,
we lived next door to each other.
I'll tell you why he did that. Because how many brothers you got?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
See, smart man.
You're right about
Smart
that
man.
one. He came to my
He'd have
job.
knocked on your door and it'd have been like, one of your 7 brothers would come to the door and it'd be like, okay, this is a
No,
little bit.
he came up there and asked me out, and I said yeah, and
Okay.
we started dating,
Okay.
and we were the first ones in the family to date like that because he's the oldest in his family,
Mm.
and I'm the oldest girl
Mm-hmm.
in my family, and my brother, I think my brother had left by then and was over in France. He had went to the service,
Mm.
so I was the oldest at home, so we started dating,
Okay.
and my brothers and sisters were young, and my sister that's next to me, they were like 14 and 15, and he had a car, and
Mm.
he worked at Great Lake Steel then, and I was still working up at Sears, and he came, and after we started dating, uh, we dated for 6 months or so. But he had gotten drafted,
Mm.
and he asked me if I would marry him, and I told him yeah, and we were going to wait. But then when he got drafted, he said he didn't want to wait with what I married him because for one thing, he said you wouldn't be here when I got back. I'm sure
Mm.
because I was hot to trot,
Mm.
miss
See,
everything.
that's
So
that's a smart. See a smart man knows.
smart man. He was
Smart
smarter
man
than I
knew.
realized.
He was
knew.
already
He
smart
said,
enough to come to your job
"Yep,
as avoid your brothers.
yep."
And
And
possibly
then
your
when he got ready,
and mom.
then he got ready.
And it was like, no. If I'm going, you going with me. Come
That's what
on
he
now. You
said,
about to be Mrs. Bettis. So
and
with
that's what happened.
so with that, also just knowing in culture and everything of just knowing how times change. How did he approach? I know you all go out, but even as grown, I just think traditions are so different. How did he talk to your dad and your mom? How did that whole
Well, you know what?
thing go?
They were my dad and his dad were friends. They were
Okay.
drinking buddies.
Okay.
You'd see them sitting out in the car in front of the house drinking,
Mhm.
just carousing. They were friends,
Mhm.
And my mother and her mother were different because she still worked. She
Mm.
did housekeeping. She would go out and do
Mhm.
housekeeping every day, and she had a car, and she would drive, and she was so different. She was totally different than my mother because my mother was really uh, uh, she was she was basically quiet,
Mm.
but she had to speak because she had kids and she
Mhm.
had to always talk to the kids or what have you.
Mhm.
But she wasn't a loud, boisterous type of person. Very, very, very gentle, very kind.
Mhm.
And that's where I get my kindness because I've got a great heart, but I'm really kind. I'm really soft, and I'm very gentle, and I got all that from my mom and both of my boys. My daughter also. has that same thing, that same kindness, gentleness about him. But I got that from my mom,
Mm.
and my mother-in-law wasn't like that.
Just like
She
your
spoke
mother-in-law
up.
was
Oh,
more
she was something else.
okay.
Couldn't get anything past her.
Okay.
But let me tell you, if I had to choose another mother after my mother, it would have been my mother-in-law.
Wow. So the
The
families
best.
fit.
We did.
Mm.
We did. And to go another step further, my sister married my brother-in-law,
Ain't that something?
Jimmy, the one that I went to school with, and my brother Leroy married their daughter.
Ain't that something?
I mean, so all our
I know
kids are
it's a
double blood
yeah, I
cousins.
was gonna say I know people
Yeah,
just it
yeah.
it
And
make for all types of
we lived
confusion.
next door.
Yeah, I know. It's like you
So
can't
that's
if
another
for
whole
for
story.
the for
But
when you all started having kids, you can't get nothing passed on nothing. Can't get nothing passed.
and we were always together.
Mm-hmm.
My mother-in-law was that mother-in-law that had dinner every Sunday. You
Wow.
get out of church, dinner at 1 o'clock. Everything is ready. And she was a hell of a cook.
Mm.
But we all gathered for years, 15 years or more, at her house every Sunday.
Okay, now
We
how
would
big
go
was
over for
this?
dinner.
How big was this house? Because
No,
it
it
was
wasn't,
already
and it wasn't that
it was
big.
already a lot of y'all.
No, 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 no.
Mm,
It was her two daughters
mm,
and her husband,
mm,
and me, my sister,
mm.
and their two sons,
Okay.
and our kids. My sister had two kids, and I had three.
Okay.
So it was just us,
So
and we
your
would be
brothers and
on the floor.
sisters,
Oh no,
they
no,
had
no, they weren't
to
there
look from afar.
until my brother married their daughter, and then he would come over,
Okay.
but not often.
Okay.
Not often.
Okay. So so with that being drafted, at the time that's that definitely right in Vietnam is where people were like
Right in Vietnam.
people America itself,
Yep.
but especially black men,
Yep.
as so many Detroit's different stories talk about, going on down to the fort.
Yep.
And you getting
Yep.
offered something new.
He
What
went
was
to.
that like and how did how was deployment? I'm guessing definitely
Um.
with
You know what? I remember the day my husband left. We had been married for 2, 3 weeks.
mm,
He left. No, it hadn't even been that long. I think we left. We got married October 23rd, and he left November 15th,
mm,
and that's how long we had been together. So,
wow.
and I remember getting in the car with my father-in-law, driving him to Fort Wayne.
Yep, as I say the fort.
Fort He left from Fort Wayne, and that morning, and it was early in the morning. We had to take him in, and I remember laying in the back of the car crying. Just, I was so sad. It was just terrible. And so he left, and I saw him again when he graduated basic training.
Mm,
I went there. I jumped on a Greyhound and went to basic training with him, and we stayed there. And then we came back home for whatever time they had before their next deployment, and we were home. I don't know, 15, 20 days, maybe something like that. I can't remember, but um, and that's during that time, I think is when I got pregnant.
mm,
Um, I got pregnant, and he ended up leaving.
and being deployed. Mm,
He ended up leaving to Germany. He went to Virginia the first time, but I couldn't go to Virginia. I was pregnant,
mhm,
and the doctor didn't want me to, because I had had a couple of little mishaps. I don't want to call them complete, but a couple little mishaps, and the doctor didn't want me to go.
mm,
So I stayed home, and he left from Virginia and went to Germany.
mm,
And uh, in the process, my dad had passed away.
mm.
He had a cerebral hemorrhage. He went to work one day and and had a stroke
Wow.
right there at work,
Wow.
and he died that night.
Hmm.
And so my mom got monies from him dying there at work, sued the company or whatever, and so she told me that she would buy me a ticket to go to Germany.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't want to leave you. I don't want to go. Um, and Dad had died, I think in no November,
As well. Okay.
November, and then
Mm.
um, this was Dad died. No, I'm sorry, I got to back it up because I forgot. My daughter, my daughter was born when I got pregnant when he first left.
Mm.
Um, my daughter was born first, and then my dad died. Uh, a month after she
Was
was
born.
born,
Hmm.
Dad died, and then that's when my mom said, "Well, you need to be with your husband." And I'm like, way over there. I had never been on a plane or anything,
Hmm.
and she said, "You really need to be with your husband." She says, "And I'll buy the ticket for you to go."
That's
And
sweet.
the reason I was actually going was he said if I came over there, he wouldn't have to go to Vietnam.
Wow.
And that's the way it was back then. I was saving him from having to go to Vietnam,
Wow.
and that's what we did.
So,
So
so that's a lot, especially at the time. You all are still very young.
very young. I was 19, and he was 20.
So at that age, definitely very young for all of this to be happening. But also, I want to honor your mother at the time, seeing the foresight in it.
Yep, she did. She did. I guess she knew what was going on. I had let her know, and we didn't have monies.
And I was gonna say because also, like in one hand, like when we think of today, and so much, I mean, you can turn on any of these podcasts, and people are always talking about men and women and money and whatever.
Oh
But
yeah,
the whole thought process of your mother that's not working at the time,
yeah,
the person that's earning for the household passes, you get something.
yeah.
And the first thing she's going to do is extend to her,
Extend.
and then you're the oldest too,
I'm the
so it's not
oldest.
like you're somebody that's
Mhm.
you're a person
Mhm.
that could be in that role, but your mother had the foresight to say, nah,
Nope.
this is what's this is what's righteous and this is what's right.
Yeah.
So
She
I'm gonna
did.
tip
She
my
really
hat to
did.
I'm tipping
Yes,
my
she
hat to
did.
your mom just for
Mhm.
seeing that. And now that puts you on the plane for the first time, and not
Yeah.
just a plane, an international plane,
Oh my God, I was nervous. I was terrified. I was really scared.
and that's a long flight today.
It's a long flight 'cause you go over that water. I think it's 5, 6 hours or so, just water.
Yeah.
It was a long flight, and we ended up in Frankfurt. We flew to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and we left from New York on Lufthansa German Airlines,
Mm.
and went from New York to
And
Frankfurt.
this is
And he came to Frankfurt and picked us up.
I know, and it's no Wi-Fi, no no in-flight movie,
No,
no
nothing.
kickbacks. I assume you just
There's no sales. There's
you
nothing.
got a baby with you too,
I got a baby. I got a 7-month-old baby.
crying the whole way, probably.
Yep. Yep. And I messed up and didn't pack her milk.
Mm.
I forgot. Um, Somehow I packed some. I don't know what I did. Why I didn't have her actual bottles, but they had milk on the plane, so they gave me milk and I put her there. And she started. I started weaning her then
Mm.
because she didn't have. She had regular milk, but she had been taking her off of her formula stuff, and so she
Mm.
actually started taking regular milk then.
Mm.
But it was different, and
Mm.
and I had never been uh had been around my husband for 15, 16 months
Mm.
or so because remember I got pregnant. I was pregnant for 9 months,
Mm.
and then it was Kim was 7 months old.
Mm.
So you add all that up.
It's just a lot, and then father passed. It's just a lot going on. You a mom. Now, I guess, I don't even know if they called it, I mean, we hear so much about postpartum depression and all of this.
Yes.
I don't
So,
I
I
don't
don't
even know
know.
what they called it back then or if
Right.
it was even labeled anything.
Listen,
you know?
I was so here I am over there, with him, and I'm like, I don't I don't know him. I forgot.
Mm.
We didn't have a lot of time
To
before.
build that.
Right.
And you so young too.
And we were so young, and by now I'm 20 because I was 20 when she was born, and now he's 21. So we're still young, and when we got married, we were I remember being over there on Boston and Linwood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had all the apartments.
Yeah.
Had all them big apartment buildings over there. We over there looking for an apartment for 3 weeks because he's getting ready to leave, but we trying to find an apartment. We end up not, and we end up staying in his room at his mother's house. So that's where we stayed.
Looking for an apartment for 3 weeks is the
3
type of
weeks.
decision that a
That's a
19-year-old
19-year-old. You can tell then we were young, 19, 20. We're looking for an apartment.
Like, I'm gonna just get this spot for 3 weeks. Hey, we can keep it. We can rent it to my friend.
We can.
That's what you. And 19-year-olds, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, really. So we end up not doing that, and we stayed there. And he told me he wanted me to stay with his parents. He wanted me to live there and stay in his room when he left, and that's where he wanted me to be. And and I'm like, I don't want to leave my mom, but hell, I'm just next door.
Yeah.
So it was no problem.
Crazy. I'm gonna just walk across.
Just walk across.
Walk next door. Walk across that driveway.
And maybe that's why I literally just adored and fell in love with my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. Those two,
they were just time to really build a relationship.
And that's what he wanted. He wanted me to stay there with them and know them.
John,
I'm
John
telling
out
you,
here playing
John Bettis.
He was playing chess.
I tell people he was bordering on genius when I introduce him, when I talk about him, but he was something else.
Chess.
But he wanted me to stay there, and I did. I stayed right there. I was pregnant the whole time when I was there with them, and it was just home. Truly home to me. They took care of me as if I was one of theirs.
And then still in your heart too, with
your
father passing, you're still very
close to
your
very close.
Right next door.
And I'm right next door. So that's why I had no problem staying there because I was so close to my mom. Now my mom is not alone but without dad. And my mom didn't do anything. Dad did everything. He was the worker. He did everything. He bought the monies, and if he didn't bring the monies in, we didn't have any. So it was that type of thing. So I just didn't want to be away from her. But I did. I stayed next door.
So Germany. How'd you address
Germany?
To the culture there, and how long were you there?
I was there. He was there for 2 years because he went to Germany when I first got pregnant. Yep. Remember that whole time I was pregnant? He was in Germany and the whole 7 months. So he was there for longer. I was there for a year and a half. And what he did when he got there, he wanted us to live with the Germans. He said, if we're going to be here, we're going to learn about the Germans and we're going to live with them. We're not going to live on the base. We had to go back to the base for everything, but we're going to live with them.
He
found Guten Tag, good day, Guten Tag, 9. And we lived with the Snyders, the best people, just the best. And it was an older man and his wife. They had a 3-story home and they rented it out to the servicemen.
Wow.
And we were on the first floor. The Germans were on the second floor, and they had a third floor with another couple, a white couple
that stayed up top.
That stayed up there, and we got to be just the best. All 3 of us, we were really, really close. And the Germans, they didn't speak English, and I didn't speak German, but we had books. And we didn't know about I guess we could have found translators like they do now, but we had our books and we would translate little words. And they started learning little words here and there. And they loved Kim. They just adored Kim. They would come and knock on my door and I would give them Kim, and they would be gone. And I could look outside and see them all out in the back, and they'd take her in the back, and you'd see her in the front walking up the streets with her. But
Mm.
they really adored Kim. So, and when we came back home, Kim was about 2, and she spoke more German than English. A lot of
Hilarious.
yeah, because she was with them most of the time,
Mm.
and that's the best time to try to teach a child when they're little like that. And it's everyday usage, everyday words. And I remember her being out in the yard. I would look out there, and she was afraid of the airplanes because they seemed like they came so close to us, and she was like, climb 'em," and I'm like, what is she saying? You know, she was speaking a lot of her words were
Mm.
German words, and, I ended up getting pregnant with John then while I was
Mm.
there, and, uh, I had to go to the hospital. uh, I had, cesareans. I'm one of those people that
Mm.
just couldn't do a natural birth, so
Mm.
with all of them, so I had to stay in the hospital a little longer, and they took care of Kim for me.
Wow.
They
That's beautiful.
wasn't that something? I mean, I trusted these people, but I had been there long enough to understand them and to
Mm.
know them, and these people they would come and get my laundry and just take it and sit it in a basket and set it outside my door, and they would come and get it and wash it and hang the clothes. And
Mm.
when they dry, they take them down, fold them, and bring them back to to me. And you name it, they just did everything. And when I was in the hospital, and my husband would he was at home with Kim, but whenever he would leave, they would take Kim and keep Kim whenever he was gone, and it was just the best. They were very good to me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, the Snyders, I'll never forget them, never. We corresponded a little bit after I left, but I assume they both passed away
Mm.
because they were older.
Already.
80 My address was 84 Holtstrasse.
Mm.
Hoche Strasse Street, and that was where I lived when I was there.
So you all come back to why? So that's the other question that I have. 'Cause so after that that tour of those years in Germany,
Mr. Riot.
missed the
We
riot.
watched the riot on the TV upstairs in the Snyders because we didn't have a TV.
So for people to understand also the time in looking at the spark of what happens there on Rosa Parks, that is so close to where you live.
It was
That's
in
like
our one block.
right.
We're
Yes.
right there. The We could see it on TV,
And you're
and we could
seeing the
see the National
businesses.
Guards
Mhm.
ride down our street, ride
Yeah.
down our alleys, and I was terrified. I just
Yeah, I was
and
gonna say.
trying to get home, you couldn't call in, we couldn't get any calls, so we would just sit upstairs and watch the TV and watch it. We couldn't understand anything because it was in
It all in
German,
German.
but we would watch and see what we could, and I could see our streets. I
Mm.
could see that, and then when I did get a chance to talk to home, I found out everything was okay. Everybody was good, but when I got back home, it was unbelievable when they were telling me how they were looting and
Mm.
everything, and how they were actually in the stores themselves, and my brothers and sisters bringing stuff home. I said, really, you weren't afraid to go in there? No,
Mhm.
everyone was doing it, so it was just part of the riot, I guess.
So from there, w- you also have the option. Why did you all choose to come back to Detroit as opposed to looking at any other city to possibly live?
Well, I guess that was home. you
Mhm.
know we we didn't know anything else. It was just, let's come back home.
Mhm.
And that's what we did. We came back home, and we stayed at my mother-in-law's for a year.
Mhm.
And my daughter Kim would stay over with my mom, 'cause she was 2,
Mhm.
and I had a new baby now, and
John.
we still had that one same little room
Mm.
that Junior had when he was growing up, that
Mhm.
I had when he was gone. So when he came back home, that's where we stayed, in that room with a baby.
Mm.
So we were there for a year. My mother-in-law let us stay there, save money up until
Mm.
we got enough to buy a home, and we did. That's when we bought our first home over on Aurora,
Mm.
off of Plymouth in Wyoming.
Wow. Okay. Plymouth in Wyoming.
Plymouth in
Oh,
Wyoming.
you moved a little further west for the
Yep.
first time.
For the first time.
What was that neighborhood like?
It was good when we were there. It was highly mixed when we got there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a lot of our neighbors and the kids up at McKenzie were mostly white.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was really highly mixed. But as the years went by, the neighborhoods changed. But my kids started school over there. They started in Parker Elementary on Myers.
Mm. Okay.
Myers off of Plymouth.
So that whole McKenzie footprint, that's how I
Oh,
look at it.
You know, they and that's where we were. And I saw everything changing. And I'm like, what's going to happen? Well, when the kids get older, as they got older, and I saw everything changing, but it was still okay when by the time they got into going into high school. But see, Jerome didn't go to McKenzie his first year. He went to Henry Ford. He went to Henry Ford. He wanted to play under Coach Hoskins. Was his name. He was the number one football coach in the city.
Yeah.
And Jerome wanted to play with him.
Okay.
So I had to get him
transferred to that whole other neighborhood.
I had to get him. Well, what helped was my sister and my brother-in-law lived on Vaughn, the first street after where Henry Ford is on.
Henry Ford's on. Man, my mind is about to slip me because it's
know.
8 Mile. It's East 8 Mile. It's not Evergreen. It's not Beach. It's
Is it Evergreen?
It may be Evergreen. Yeah, I think
Evergreen.
Yeah, Evergreen. Yeah,
it's on Evergreen, and one block over is Vaughn,
Yep.
and that's where my sister and my brother-in-law lived,
Mhm.
and they were right at Henry Ford. Henry Ford was here, and you go around the corner to their street, and they were right there. So that's how Jerome got into Henry Ford, because back then you couldn't go to, and you had to go to your neighborhood school.
So
I had to use my brother-in-law and my sister. We had to use their address, and they had to. Jerome had to go to school. They had to prove that that's where he lived. And it got so bad that they didn't want him to come there. I had to get my brother, who was a football coach
at Kettering,
and who knew
the people in the student center and all that.
He knew the people over at Henry Ford. So he took Jerome by the hand and took him over to Henry Ford and got him registered at Henry Ford.
I'm surprised your brother wasn't like, he need to be coming here.
He wanted him. That was what he really wanted. But I said, no, he can't go to Kettering because that's too far east. I don't know anyone over there.
Yep.
He just knows you. But when he comes out of there, where he has to stay with you, he doesn't know anything.
All the people around that way.
Nothing. I told him no. That was just too far because he did want him to come to Kettering.
I'm sure.
I'm like,
say,
no, no.
I assume.
So we sent him.
I assume it was a lot of interesting conversations from. But you big sister, so it's different. If you was little sister,
yeah,
he'd probably force that a little bit more.
So he ended up he went to Henry Ford for a semester. His first semester, but he got into a fight over there. He had befriended one of his friends over there. I won't use his name.
Just a friend.
You may know.
Yeah.
But anyway, he befriended this young man, and this young man got into some trouble with some of the guys over there. Someone wanted to fight with him.
Well,
and him and Jerome were friends. So Jerome would walk him to the bus stop and then come walk over to my sister's. But these guys want to fight. Now Jerome has got to fight with these guys. And Jerome called me and told me what was going on. And I said, no, you're coming home. My husband and I went over to Henry Ford and we told the principal, and I can't think of his name. I remember the principal over there, and I remember him so because he had a short arm. I can't think of his name, but he didn't want Jerome to leave.
Mm.
And I said, I'm sorry, but yeah, he's going to leave because they're having trouble over here. And back then they were fighting and maybe with a knife. It's not like it is today. Nothing like today.
Mm.
But my husband and I said no, because we weren't that type of a family. We didn't
Mm.
there was no fighting and we didn't do anything like that. So we went and got Jerome and we told the principal we're taking him out.
So for people to kind of get a better context of Henry Ford that are watching Detroit is different. Like a lot of schools in Detroit, and I'd assume a lot of other urban neighborhoods, like Detroit's not a place, because I graduated 2001, but from a lot of these interviews, like definitely like the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even now a little bit, gang culture isn't as prevalent like as like a LA thing where people,
No,
people's grandparents will be in a gang.
right,
It's more
right.
like neighborhood culture. So for people to get an idea, Henry Ford sits in like a mix of like sort of like different types of neighborhoods. And sometimes you just end up in trouble because you on this side of the street and they on that
from
side of the
it
street.
could have
It's
been.
just sometimes that's
You
simple
know, I
sometimes.
don't know, but
Well, we don't know all of it, but I do
we
know
said-
it leads to a lot of the fights that usually
Right.
happen in high school.
but we said no. That
Mhm.
wasn't going to be.
Yep.
You know, I didn't send you over there for that. So
Mhm.
we took him. We went and we took him to each class. He was in accelerated classes, and we walked to each one, got him in his book, and we told each teacher that he wouldn't be back, and we were
Mm.
sorry, but that's what we had to do. And
And
we walked him out of that school, and he walked into Mackenzie, and this is in Jerome's book that he has. But Dozier, a football coach
Mhm.
over at Kettering at Henry
At McKenzie.
Mackenzie, was a friend of ours.
Mhm.
He played ball with all my brothers, or at least my older brothers, and he graduated from Cass with my husband. So we all knew who he was. And Jerome walked into his office one day, and Coach was sitting at his desk. He said he was sitting there with his head down, and he said he heard this young man say, "Coach, I want to play football for you." And Dozier said he raised his head and he said, I looked up at this Adonis. He said, I looked up and I said, hell yeah, you can play football for me. And the rest is history.
So history. So when we get into Jerome's high school stats, which at the time I'm young, I'm a West Side Cub. I'm so some of the older Cub players
Mm-hmm.
used to like bring the newspaper stats of Jerome Bettis, like, okay, he doing this, he doing this,
Oh,
he
okay.
doing this, he doing this, and people would be like, he about to go pro. Like this is so like
Really?
it was like a legend of Jerome Bettis because he would get so many yards, and then like it's like this can't be real, like 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 a legend starts building around the kid at McKenzie. And also, so people get a kind of context of this, not saying McKenzie is not known for, I would say McKenzie was known more for a basketball school than a football school.
Okay.
So like, and I'm sure like all the people I know, Stagnation, and they do one heck of a all alumni cookout every year.
Oh, I know
So
about that.
Shout
Yes.
did it and everybody, but yeah, it was Jerome's stats were like something out of a video game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his high school career
It took off. So maybe that's why so many people know him from high school.
Oh yeah,
they know about him at high school.
Yeah, like some of the stuff I was just reading the stat line, thinking to myself, like, this is embarrassing for whoever he playing.
Yeah, it was. You know what they said? He was in a man's body playing with boys and that type of stuff. And I remember one of the coaches at one of the suburban schools, and he said, "Get him out of there before he hurt somebody." At one of the championship games they were playing. And I didn't realize what it was about, or what the whole thing was happening when he started playing, because I didn't want him to play. I hated football. See, because those brothers of mine, they would use me as a tackling dummy, and my dolls would be
Oh,
the
man.
football. So I hated football because they were like football
These are-
fanatics all over the girls.
This is sometimes the tragedy of being a sister with a
A
lot of
sister with
brothers.
a lot of brothers. Truly,
Wrestling moves
truly.
get tried on all types of stuff.
Everything. So I did not. I said when I have kids, when I'm grown, my kids will not play football. That dreaded football. No. So I didn't. I had no idea what was going on because Jerome didn't play any
Football.
little league or we were bowlers. We bowled. I taught him how to bowl when he was 7. And he bowled until he started practicing football.
Okay, now wait. Now you getting into something else.
See, it's so many different facets, so many different.
All right, now
you know,
Midwestern bowling. So for people that don't know, and Jerome Bettis has done some bowling competitions, and it gets real serious.
He's serious.
So, but I don't know if people know how serious some people in the Midwest take bowling. Shout out to my granny that was down in Cincinnati bowling all the time. And my grandfather, Don Scott. Don Scott, he actually is in the Bowling Hall of Fame.
Wow,
Yep.
wow.
So, but people take bowling serious.
Oh, serious.
Midwest.
Well, you know,
Like
we were the
on a
bowling
Tuesday.
capital.
Yeah.
Michigan, we're the bowling capital.
People travel from city to
I
city.
traveled. I was on bowling leagues and
So
I
let's talk
traveled.
about what
Jerome was in the
bowling.
Oh my God. Let's go back to John. That John Bettis. When we started dating, bowling was his thing. And he said, you know, I want you to go bowling. And so I did. I went and at this time it was a bowling alley on Boston. And
I know they said the one next to where Esquire Corned Beef, because we used to live down the street from there, was a bowling alley around there.
That's on
Dexter and
Yes.
Fullerton.
Yes. Bowling alley. Dexter. That's the street I keep trying to think of.
Yep.
Well, he was a pin setter there because back then there was no automatic pin setters. There was a person back there. When you knocked those 10 pins down, somebody had to come out there and set those pins back up, and that's what he did. He worked at the bowling alley doing that, but then he also bowled. And he took me, and I'm like, I don't know what it was about it, but I just fell in love with it.
And that's how much we like bowling in the Midwest. You'll have a fine date, and you'll be like, let's go to a bowling alley.
Let's go to a bowling alley.
I would not try this in Miami. I wouldn't try it in LA.
But here it works.
Yes, in Detroit.
It works. And we went there. We went on a date. Yep. And it ended up that when my birthday came, he bought me a ball, bag, and shoes. He bought everything. And I started bowling from then, just from that.
In the leagues and everything.
And I joined the leagues, and I bowled twice a week in different leagues. And then when the kids came along, I took them bowling.
Wow.
I taught them, and my daughter, I sent her to school to learn how to bowl, learn how to teach bowling. I learned that myself. American Junior Bowling Congress. We started bowling. I started, up at Great Lakes Bowling. It's now where the White Castle is on Woodward. Used to be a bowling alley right there, bowling center. And that's where the kids first started bowling.
So I definitely got this question because, and this is like kind of then and now. I can imagine how competitive it gets because from hip hop, I know John a little bit.
Yeah.
John, writing and words, he'd be competitive. So
how
competitive.
Oh my God, they were these two boys. Oh my God, they thought. But Kimberly, I can't leave her out because right now up at on the corner of across from McKenzie, there's a school, a junior high school.
Yep.
I can't think of the name of it.
Current McKenzie, that is McKenzie now, the junior high school.
The junior high,
the old McKenzie. So The high
Across from
school
McKenzie was a
was another school.
school. It
I
was a
know what
middle
school you're talking
school.
about.
It's a middle
It's
school.
not Lovin is over there. I know
No,
what school you're talking
I
about.
can't
Right
think
there
of
on
it.
the
It
corner.
might come to me, but when Kim started in there, she was bowling, and she won the state champ bowling
Wow.
in her age, and they have a plaque inside that school with Kim's name on it, and they have a picture bigger than that of Kim in there. But the picture was because of her honor status. I think she was very very smart.
So
And they put that, and that plaque was in there because of her state champion bowling. So these kids all they won different championships in their respective singles, doubles, mixed doubles, four boys.
y'all just
They did it. They did it all three of them. They really, and I thought Jerome was actually going to be a professional bowler. And excuse me, that doggone football came in,
changed the path.
changed everything.
So now let's get into let's jump the story a little bit as we get closer to a close. Notre Dame superstar, from Notre Dame superstar to the NFL. His NFL start is with the Rams, and I think this is when the Rams are still making the transition between cities and everything.
Well, yeah, they were still in L.A. They were still L.A. Rams, and for 2 years they were L.A. Rams. The third year is when they went to St. Louis and became the St. Louis Rams. So he was there those 3 years.
And there during that transition in the team identity, just a lot of stuff changing in the organization. It's a business. Then makes his way to the black and yellow city.
The black and gold.
So, and it actually starts as most people in Detroit are Lions fans. I'm a Steelers fan because of Jerome, and the Lions just let me down so many times.
I know we had to
Herman.
have
I love
something.
Herman more.
That's me.
I told Herman, I was like, Herman, man, y'all just for the longest it just was
It was
Jerome's
nothing.
over there,
right?
So
that's who it was. Everybody was rooting for Jerome.
How did the fit and the feel there with Bill Cowher and the team? Like, how do you think that had an impact on Jerome? Just because I'm watching from afar as a kid and reading the stories, and it's just seeming like things are matching, but just being in the right place.
It was, and that was the best thing that ever happened to him. And I remember when he got in trouble with the management of the Rams, and they went and drafted another running back, and he's the star running back. And before they did that, he wasn't running well, and they wouldn't give him one game. They gave him the ball 8 times. You can't do anything with that 8 times, and it got so that they had a new coach, and the new coach wasn't with Jerome. No, and Jerome it was over with, and they decided to trade him because Jerome had decided he was going to leave football and go back to school because he left school a year early. So he decided, I'm done. And I told him, son, if that's what you need to do, that's fine. I said, but believe you didn't do anything wrong. This is something that isn't a business. I said, and it's just, they decided what they wanted to do, but it wasn't you because you are the best. Always, I'm a stickler of talking, so I just talked to him like that, and he said, okay. So now comes the trade and the Steelers, and John Bettis, my son, was born a Steeler fan. How the heck that happened, I don't know. And when they were little boys and you would get the
teams and stuff,
everything, Jerome was always Dallas Cowboys, and Jerome was always the Steelers. And they had the football game with the men on it, and they were Dallas. Everything was Steelers and Dallas. And so when the call came through, Jerome was home, and I was standing upstairs, and he walked in the front door, and I looked down, and he said, Mom, I'm going to go to the Steelers. And John is screaming in the other room.
Hilarious.
I'm going to wear my name on my back with a Steeler jersey.
Mm.
Because remember, he's been a Steeler fan all his life.
Wow.
And Jerome said, Mom, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can put that Steeler
The
Because
competition
with
between
the
brothers.
Cowboys and that's that same competition, the Cowboys and the
Brothers,
Steelers. He
yeah.
said, I don't know if I can put that jersey on, Mama. I
Mhm.
was like, son, you're gonna have to put it on.
Well, I'm glad he did.
And the day he put it on, it was the like, here we go again.
Mhm.
You can read it. It's all there. From the time that fit was him, because he was my daughter and I was talking about it the other day. He called himself a mutter. We were talking about we were looking at the snow game with Buffalo the last week.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, I said, oh my God, I'm so glad we're not there, because we went to every single game.
Wow.
It didn't matter what the weather was.
Wow.
If it was 3 degrees below zero, we were there.
Wow.
We were sitting up huddled. So, and I was saying, I'm so glad we weren't there. I said, but you know what? Jerome would have loved it, because he was a mutter. And the worse the weather got, the better he played.
Mhm.
And let's not forget, Jerome has asthma.
Mm.
So when he went to get a physical to play football at 12, 13, coming out of middle school, going into high school, his asthma came back. He was born with asthma, but it went dormant when he was about a year and a half. And then no problems until he started going through puberty.
Mm.
And I took him to get a physical to play football, and the doctor said he has asthma and he's wheezing, and started giving him shot right then.
Mm.
I'm like, well, can he play ball with this?
Mm.
And the doctor says, well, yeah. I say, but he has to take oxygen, because I thought these guys had to take oxygen all the time.
And we also have to remember, one second, I got to recall a moment, flashback. Remember, MaBus wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of football either. So
No, hell no.
So,
and now y'all gonna put my baby.
It's like, oh, come on now.
Y'all gonna put my baby in there. He done left bowling. I'm like, he can't go to practice now because he got to go to this doggone football. I'm like, okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I took him. I let him start playing, and I remember being at the practice when he practiced up at McKenzie. I was every practice. I was there. I was sitting in my car.
Wow.
Outside the field, and I was just watching him, everything. And he came one day. He said, "Mom, you have to come in." He said, "The coach wants you to come in." He said, "They think you a spy." I said,
Hilarious.
They don't know who you are. You're gonna have to come into the field. No problem. I sat on them bleachers every day. I went to practice. By now, John is down at Clark, Atlanta, and Kim had moved to New York. So it's just Jerome and I. His dad is at work, and I was working, but then I stopped working. I was at Michigan Computer Institute, and the school closed. And when they closed, Jerome was in high school by then, and I said, I'm not going to get another job because I'm not working on Fridays when he plays ball.
Mm-hmm.
He was still at high school playing on Fridays. I said, so I'm not getting another job because they're not going to let me off to be there on Fridays. And then he started in college, and I'm like, they're not going to let me off to go to his games on the weekends to travel. So I retired then, but my husband kept working. He kept working. So when he went to high school, to back up again, when he started in high school and he started playing so well, I told my husband, you need to come to these games. Something is happening, and I know you want to be a part of this. Because he didn't know what was happening with Jerome playing ball. He had never watched Jerome. I was always there from practice, even over Henry Forest, I was over there. And, and I didn't like it over there because he was playing varsity and JV. And I didn't like that. Remember, he's got this asthma, and I'm sitting there with an inhaler, and I got an inhaler I gave to the coach. And, at every game, I watched to see how I'm not going to get down on the field. I make my way, how I'm going to get there when I need to. Never had to go. And when he did have an attack, hell, he was in the pros. They weren't gonna let me down there. And anyway,
I think if I guarantee MaBus would have found a way. If need be.
But yeah, it
So
that career, that still is. It was a match. It was a match made in heaven.
So we meet last. Well, I guess that's earlier this year with the draft coming here.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit is different. The idea is like, okay, we should do something. My mom's my first fan, just to honor that relationship between NFL moms and their sons in that journey, because so much of that relationship of all success deals with all your stakeholders in life. The biggest stakeholder in anyone's life is a mother. So like even on my birthday, I'm thinking this is really more of a celebration for my mom than me, because
Right.
as much as I'm here, and thank God I'm here. Thank my mama I'm here too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
really
yeah.
the journey was my mom.
It's hers.
So we meet there, and so much of this story that you're telling and you're sharing, and we have more that will be shared from it because we filmed it all and it was an amazing event. But so much of that intimacy that you share, and intimacy like that one-on-one, those strong connections and bonds between you and Jerome of being at every game, watching and learning the game, and being present and connecting. What would you say to a lot of the sports moms and dads or brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
What does that connection of being present as your child or your sibling is there on that field or on that court or like doing something in sports?
My biggest thing with this entire life that I've been in, that I've been in with Jerome, John, Kim, my husband, because we all did this. We all did this together. I mean, it started with me sitting there watching Jerome, and he was fine with me watching him. He was great. No problem, mom. Just come on inside, and I did, and to know, I think for him to know that I was there, it was great for him. And you hit on it when you said, "Mom, my first fan." We still got that connection of mom and son. And I don't know if people want to speak on it, but there's a connection between a mother and a son. And I've got two, and
Mhm.
say I got different connections with both my sons. One is different; they're different guys, but the love and the support and the connection that I have with each one is the same.
Mhm.
And then I have my daughter, and everyone needs everyone needs a daughter.
Mm.
I couldn't make it without that daughter, but it's a different with these boys. The love that a mother has for a son is, and that's, and the story is their first love. That son's first love, his first girlfriend, his first everything in his life is mom.
Mhm.
And then when they get to playing ball, and you see the first thing they say, "Hi, mom."
Mhm.
And they put their fingers up or they wave. It's "Hey, mom," and that's part of that. But the whole family comes in when it's about support, because I have a big thing about support, and I used to do a lot of speaking, and it was always to talk to mom, dads about the support that your child needs. And we always saw it, and I would tell them to watch that child play, because they want to show you what they can do. When you're sitting there, and I always feel that made such a difference in Jerome's life. With Jerome, he wanted to show us, he wanted to do the best that he could do. And we were always right there for him to do that.
Mm.
So if you're there for your child and watching your child and letting your child know how you support him, how you believe in him, and how you know he's doing the best that he can, and he's doing it for you, it just makes it so much better. And that I always felt that with Jerome. It didn't necessarily have to be, but that's the way I felt, because we were always there.
And talk about always being there. Such a storybook ending to a career for Jerome Bettis. Like almost like it's like Hollywood wrote this or
Yeah, it
something. Like
is.
it
It's a
doesn't even
Hollywood
seem
story.
like
It should have been. I don't know why they didn't
because
pick up on it.
because it's like, okay, to get to a point where, all right, a Super Bowl come into Detroit.
Can you believe that?
First off, Super Bowls don't happen in cold weather cities, period. But Detroit gets a new field, and it eventually gets a Super Bowl. So as much as people definitely look at the administration of Mayor Kilpatrick and say whatever they want to say,
we got
one of the things
Super Bowl.
I can definitely say that Mayor Kilpatrick sought out when he said he was running.
Right.
He said, "I'm gonna get a Super Bowl for the city of Detroit," and people looked at it and said, "He's crazy." And he pulled it off.
Yes, he did. And it was one of the best ones ever.
And not only did he pull it off, and it was still snowing in Detroit.
Oh, it was cold.
And definitely cold.
It was cold.
It was one of the best, but you also have Jerome Bettis from Detroit. In the star of the Super Bowl.
You know what? And to take this back, the year before, Jerome was going to retire. He had played, and we had all been there, feeling this was his last season. This was his last game.
Mm-hmm.
And he felt that, and they couldn't win. They got to the playoffs and what have you.
I remember.
And he couldn't go any further. And he said, "I'm done." He told us, "I'm done."
Mm-hmm.
We never said anything. So he went to the team, and he told the team that he felt this was his last year and that he was sorry. And that's when we saw Hines crying. And Ben Roethlisberger went to Jerome and begged him to stay. "Man, please, you stay one more time. I'm going to get you that Super Bowl at home." And Hines is crying, "Man, don't leave. The whole team, don't leave, man. Don't leave. Stay one more time." We won the Super Bowl.
And in Detroit, so now you talk about people watching. So I just got to ask from the outside, how many people in your family and cousins, as we know now, we got double cousins, were trying to get some Super Bowl tickets that day?
Jerome ended up getting something like 60.
Wow.
And these tickets are $600 at the time, $700.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't get a player in town discount on a Super Bowl ticket.
What helped him was he got the suite, and I think that suite was 25, 30,000, whatever.
Whoa.
We got the suite, and it held about 24, maybe 20, maybe more than that, crammed.
It probably was for 20, but it may have been 34.
Right, it was exactly, and we were crammed in that suite. And then we had people all down in there, sitting in different seats. But it was the best ever, and it was my husband and I, and I look at it sometime when I go back and look at it, and we cried when it was over. When they won it, we shed tears, and I know Jerome did, because it had been 13 years of us out here struggling, running, crying, crawling, in the heat and the snow, whatever, to get to that point. And I just didn't realize it until they got it, what it meant.
Yeah.
Because Jerome can now say, "I'm a champion."
And not just a champion, another thing in his career that's near and dear, his Hall of Fame speech.
Is that Hall of Fame? Listen, you know what? I sit at home sometimes and I pull up YouTube because they say it's one of the best ones.
It's one of the greatest ones ever.
Best ones ever.
It's one of the greatest ones ever. And just in that journey, and in that Hall of Fame speech, you hear so much about family.
Family. And Jerome is a family man. He was, he went back. It's been 2 years now, and got that degree. He left a year early, but he promised me when we sat in Coach Holt's office and talked about him coming out. He said, "Mama, I promise you that I'll get that degree," because he knew I was sold on the degree. That's all I wanted was you to get that degree, And I looked at an interview I did recently about that same thing, why I was so stuck on him getting that degree. And I told him, I said, "It's probably because I didn't get my degree. My husband went to college, but neither one of us got that degree that we needed. We felt we needed, and I always wanted Jerome to get it." And he called me and he said, "Mom, I'm going back to school."
Mm.
Because I had told him, I said, "You promised." He said, "I promise you." I said, "No, promise yourself that you're going to do it." But life doesn't lead you that way. It doesn't give you the direction that you need. He had to make a living for himself, and then he got out of football, and now he's got a family, so he's got to make a living for his family.
Also,
So
one
there's
heck of a businessman.
very much, and there's no time for him to go back to school. So
Mm.
I just figured, well, maybe this won't happen. COVID is the reason that Jerome went back to school.
Mm.
COVID stopped everything in his life. He could not go make his speeches. He couldn't go to the camps. He couldn't go. He does a lot of golf
Mm.
outings. He couldn't do those. He couldn't do anything. But he could sit at home and get on
Go
the
to school.
computer and go to school.
Mm.
And that's what he did. He finished it. And then the last semester had to be done on the campus of Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to go and get a condo and move to Notre Dame for 6 months.
That's funny. That's almost like Rodney Dangerfield Back to School. That's a movie within itself too.
It's all on YouTube. You can see all the different stories. You can see him making his way. His very first day, they interviewed him, and he's on his way to class, and he talked about being in class and how different it was. But when he walked across that stage, when he walked into the stadium, we were sitting there looking at him, and he always beat his chest for us, and when he started beating his heart, we were like, oh, we were just passing the tissues all up and down, because by now his wife, his two children, John, me, Kim, and one other family friend, Jeff, we're all sitting there, and uh, it got so good to Notre Dame, they had Jerome to make a speech,
Wow,
graduation speech.
that's deep.
When that was very deep. When
That
they
is
asked him to speak, and at the end of his speech, he said, "Mom, promise kept."
I
Ye-
love it.
Yes, you did, son.
So,
Promise kept.
I love it. I love it. So with that, we at a close.
Before we close,
What you gonna say?
the legend continues.
Let's break it down.
Jerome's son just signed for Notre Dame last December the 4th.
Wow, congratulations.
He's 17 years old. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. He's not that running back that his dad is. He's a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been accepted. He has signed. He started in Notre Dame
Wow.
January 11th.
That's beautiful.
And Jerome's daughter is already in Notre Dame. She's in just completed her first year at Notre Dame. He got him. But before we close, let me say one thing about that. You know what? You always, when you have your children, you show your children what you want, what you want them to do, and show them how to do it. Take your kids to school. Jerome took them to that college, to that campus, when they were little kids. He would always go in there for different things, and always took the kids, and he let them see. He let them see what college was like. He let them see everything at Notre Dame. And I saw Junior and he's named Jerome Bettis Jr. And I saw one of the speeches Junior made, and he said, "My dad started bringing me here when I was 8 years old." He said, and something stick. And I said, then, I want to come here.
That's deep.
This is what I want to do. And I was just floored when I saw it.
That's deep.
Because I've heard that. That's what you do.
I know. See, and it's sort of like your dad taught you, even though we never gonna be able to get none of that fish. I'm just saying.
I'm sorry. I get to talking, and
love it.
I have a lot.
So with that, the Pro Moms Association, and you're anchoring that. The NFL has an organization that you're a founding member of to connect and network and help a lot of moms.
Help the moms, yes.
As
new moms coming in.
The NFL, as much as it's fun and people are fans of it, it's a business.
It's a business.
And planning for just the My Mom's My First Fan, reaching out to players. one of the things that one of the players told me, and I was like, damn, I never thought about it like that, because the NFL doesn't have guaranteed contracts. He said at the end of every season, it's really like you can be anywhere.
You could be anywhere.
It's starting over the clock and just learning what the management is as families, and you get traded or you're a
I'm
free
telling
agent
you.
and you're moving. So the resources of everything, and share a little bit about why that organization meant something to you.
Yeah, PIFMA, Professional Football Players Mothers. We've been together. I think it's 26. We may be going on our 27th year, and I am one of the founding moms. And what it meant when they asked me to join, I don't know about this, and I thought about it, and I said, okay, I thought about it, and at the time, uh, we felt we could help our sons. We found out that we still meant something to these guys. I guess I didn't realize that my voice still meant something to my son when he got to be a grown man. I didn't realize it, but these guys were out here, and back then it's not as prevalent as it is now. They were just making such terrible decisions with their lives, and the women were there. The women were there, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to keep these guys away from these women, because a lot of them have families, and we're trying to get them to do right with their families, and do some community work, and that type of thing. And that's one of the reasons we really got together, was really to help these boys. But another reason was, what I got out of it is the fellowship with the other moms, and I have my best of friends that I have here, but sometimes those best of friends don't quite understand what you go through
With the NFL
with
mom.
the NFL moms. We're at a we were at a conference. We have a conference every year, and we're at a conference, and I get a message that uh, I need to come down to the mailroom, and I go down to the mailroom and pick up a package, and there's a package for me, and I open it, and the package is a Rolex,
Hmm.
a Rolex watch. I don't remember asking for this, and is this mine? I open this green box, and sure enough, there's a Rolex, and Jerome had sent it, thinking of me, bought it and sent it to me. So when I went back up to tell the moms, they were like ecstatic. They were all so happy for me. So I get a call, somebody, girl, I just got a new Jag. Oh my God, that is so great. I got a house. He bought me this. I understand being a mom of a son like that.
And you can't say that with your
And I
friend,
can't
possibly at the
say that
church.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They don't quite understand.
Yeah.
My son, he bought me diamond earrings. He bought me this. But to have somebody that you can actually talk to that understands,
Something
when
like
you
that.
have, and then you have moms whose son wasn't taking care of them, or wasn't doing right by their mother. And I guess different people may have different thoughts on what you do for your mother, but I just believe, because she's there, she's did everything for you. You can help your mom,
Yeah.
take care of your mom, and some of the guys didn't want to do that. So we always had a hen session in our conference, to where we could talk about that. Who needs what? Whose son is not doing? Just to be heard, just to be able to tell somebody about this, is was always good for us. We felt that maybe we could tell our son to talk to this son
Talk to that player
about, right,
yeah.
how he's treating, and it's always about the mom. We weren't going everywhere else. It was about us. See,
And that's
so
deep.
that's what we did, and we still do. So now we've reached out. We do a lot of community work. Do a
Yes.
lot of, yeah.
And I thank you all for partnering with us for My Mom's My First Fan, and something else. Like right now, you Detroit is a different family. You were also one of the judges of the Collard Green
Sure
Cook-Off.
was. I enjoyed it. That was fun.
Yes, which Howie Bell was being Howie Bell.
Yeah,
Wow.
and he's a friend of John's too. Him and John's are good friends.
So yes, and
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
that
And
was
just
fun.
staying in community.
Always, I'm in the community and being back over at the Walker Williams Center,
Yes,
where I was when they first opened. I was
yes.
part of that, so
It's
I'm a city girl. I'm Detroit, and
I love it.
that's Jerome. He loves Detroit.
Me and you just as crazy still being here through the snow.
Too. Well, ain't that something? Because that's what people ask me, girl, why haven't you gone listen? It told me at the time it was about 60, 65 years. I told me it took me 65 years to learn where I wanted to go in this city. Anywhere I need to go,
There you go.
I don't need to start all over again
Hey,
somewhere else.
I feel you.
I just put
So
on some boots, put
so
on a big coat, and I'm gone.
so now classic Detroiters is some questions. Classic ones. And we close on these. Your very first car. Year, make, and model. Year you got it.
My first car,
Yep.
my first car, um, Junior, not our family car, my car.
Yep.
Now we had cars, the family back and forth, but my first car was a burgundy a Chevrolet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they don't make it anymore. And the year was 19 1990
Okay.
because I used it to go to work and I stopped working in 91
Mm.
when the school closed. Jerome was in
So
college.
that's the car. That's the car that people was thinking you were a spy in, probably.
That I was which?
They said you was a spy while watching the practices.
That's the
That
car.
was that car.
That's that car.
All right. Where's the first place you went when you got it? To work, I'm guessing?
Oh, to work. Hell, I had to
Okay.
pay for it.
Okay.
My husband paid the insurance. He always paid the insurance, but I always paid the note.
Okay.
I had to pay the car note.
All right. And I'm guessing it was probably a lot of children possibly borrowing that ride when they got old enough too.
Oh no. Then I had no. Before then, we had a John named it the Bulls, a 1990 Chevrolet Caprice Classic.
For real? Y'all had a Chevy Caprice? Mm.
Yeah, and John called it the Bulls, and that's what they used to borrow all the time. John,
I bet they did.
oh yeah,
I'm
was
pressing
silver.
I think John probably put some speakers in there.
I end up giving it to him, and he did put speakers in it. He loved that car.
I can
He
imagine the
loved that
sounds. I can imagine the
Caprice
sounds of the
Classic.
Caprice Classic.
Caprice Classic, and from the Caprice Classic, I got the Burgundy Chevy, but the first car was the Caprice
See,
Classic.
that's why you gotta love a mama. Mama will get you a ride.
Sure did. Oh,
Dad gonna be like, you gonna have to
listen.
work and do this and do that.
Listen. Before we close, one story. Jerome didn't have a car. He was in high school,
hmm
and I was taking him to
hmm
school every
Practice
day
and
and
all of
pick
that.
him. Yep,
Mhm.
and because he had to be there early in the morning, and I didn't want him out there walking up Wyoming and whatever. So I took him before I went to work, and then in the evening, 7 or whatever, I'd pick him up. So he needed a little car. I said, okay, I'll get you a car. But now I'm like, how am I gonna get a car? I went to bingo one day.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, I was an avid bingo player, and I bingo for $500.
Mm.
I took that $500. I went home, and I'm like, look, I threw it up in there. I got $500. I said, Jerome, I'm gonna buy you a car. We went to a little car dealer on Livernois and Warren over there, where they
Mhm.
had some little car
The little
dealers,
car lots. Yep.
and found him a little Mustang, a little brown Mustang.
Wow.
I
Okay.
paid every penny I had. I gave it to him, and
Mhm.
I bought him. That was his first car. I bought him a car,
Okay.
and we were on we were on a television story somewhere, and I heard him telling that story.
Uh-huh.
My mom is everything. My mom
Hey,
bought me that car.
hey,
Hell, yes, I did.
mama will get you a ride.
Yeah.
A dad will get you a ride, but you're gonna have to earn it. You're gonna have to do
You
all
got to
types of
do
yeah. It's
something.
like,
You got
oh,
to
here we
earn you
go.
right.
Here we go. Better off working,
And I
getting a
bought
job
that money.
someplace else. But
I
a
got.
mom will get you a ride.
I
A mom
sure
will be like,
did.
here
I
you
got
go.
all that little money.
Here you
Bought
go.
him that little used Mustang, and he
Shout out
rode
mom.
it too.
So you're the DJ at the end of the fireworks at Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
Giving him something he can feel. Aretha Franklin.
Lady Ree. That's one.
Marvin Gaye. Which one?
Hmm.
Sam Cooke. Oh. Let's see. Marvin Gaye.
Mm-hmm.
If I Should Die Tonight.
Wow, that's a rare one, but I like it. I like it.
If I Should Die Tonight.
That's a
Ooh.
deep one.
Yeah.
And we close with this one. If you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
Jerome.
Okay.
Of course.
Why?
Because I think he's the spirit of Detroit.
I love it.
He loves Detroit. He comes back. He got businesses here. He still own that property downtown
Yeah.
that they tried to take from him, that they tried to do everything.
Oh.
But he still owns it, and he's still going to do something down
And
there.
he definitely will, especially as we seeing certain things expand upon the riverfront and other things.
Right. He's
but
been fighting with him, but
that's
still, he still own it.
that's gonna definitely probably end up being on some Detroit's different public comments, because we know how I personally feel about Black-owned businesses happening in the city of Detroit, where we definitely need people that was born here,
Yes.
legacy Detroiters,
Yes.
doing the business maneuverings, because it's a lot of people coming here doing some stuff.
Oh, I'm going to have
But
to
it ain't
get
nothing
you.
like people
Yes.
being from here.
I'm going to have to get
doing
you
some
hooked
stuff.
up with him. I'm going to have to. 'Cause, yeah, you
Okay.
saying just kind of
You know,
stuff that I want to hear that he loves to hear.
I wave that banner all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's about the soil. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Oh, I enjoyed this.
This was fun.
I hope you got what you niggas. There's so much to me. It's so much. You know, I used to tell people, what you see is what you get. That's just me. I'm out there, and whatever it is. I got a testimony.
Oh, I love it.
I'm trying to do a book. I'm in the process of doing some things. So
Well,
there's
I'll
just so
share
much I
this.
got to get out there.
I'll share this with you and even put it in transcript. I can also tell you definitely that John Sr., that was a smart man. He he was playing 3D chess. He was like, oh, if I do this, then you do
know
this,
what?
and you do this. It's like she gonna get in good with my family because she gonna stay with him.
He ended up, bless his heart, he passed away
Rest in
in
peace.
November of 20. We won the Super Bowl the same year we went to the Super Bowl. It was unbelievable. We won the Super Bowl in February. Jerome got married. We had a big old wedding over in Jamaica in June, and he died in November that same year, 05, 06.
Yeah.
And he was the chief of the electrical of the city of Detroit when he passed away.
Yeah.
And that was a job that he really wanted, but he didn't have his college degree for that job. But it got so, God is so good. The person who had the degree and who was the chief left. And Junior was the person there that had all the experience, all the training, everything. And he got the job.
Yeah.
Chief of the electrical for the city of Detroit.
That's beautiful. And see, you see how entrenched in the city they are, from rec centers and everything.
Yep, right here.
So yeah, it's even only fitting when we talking about doing some business, especially on the riverfront, that Jerome Bettis, especially being that it looks like some dollars is being put together to give to almost trillionaire to do certain things.
Yeah.
Definitely make sure that the right assets are being given to Detroit.
Something in yeah. So because Kilpatrick made that happen. He did some things when he was there.
I think
he made that happen when Jerome got that land.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yep.
Some things.
So with that, thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for having me here. I enjoyed this.
Oh, this was fun.
Yeah, anytime you get me to talking, and I talk. I like to talk about things that I know.
I love it. And sing
You
it,
know?
sing it back up for Aretha too. That's what I'm putting that. We putting that in the book.
I hadn't even thought about that. It's been years since I thought about that. And what's his name? Melvin Franklin, Cookie, one of his sisters. I played
Yeah.
baseball. I was a baseball player,
Mm.
and yeah, I played baseball with Cookie. She was our pitcher,
Mm.
and so I knew Melvin, and I saw Melvin's wife. We were in California when Jerome was in California,
Mm-hmm.
and Yo-Yo,
Mm-hmm.
rapper
Yeah.
Yo-Yo.
That was married to Mayor Wyndham over here in Highland Park.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're not married any longer.
I don't know, but I know I'm saying it as in post but you never know with the world of
I know she was
stuff.
she was just with John because we met up.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.